Big weekend of racing coming up at Parx, in particular, a big Saturday of racing at Parx. The Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby, the Grade 1 Cotillion. I'm Gino Bacola, alongside my good friend Barry, the Sniper Spears. Barry, man, Parx always has this incredible day. They'll have a few stakes race days throughout a really long Parx season, but this day is the one in particular that a lot of the handicappers and gamblers look forward to, because there's always some really nice betting races and some big names, and we get that here. And we're looking at the pick five. We get Torpedo Anna in the Cotillion. She's the big name there. And then in the Pennsylvania Derby, it's a little more like wide open. None of the real top 3-year-olds as of late are in there. So that's the more kind of contentious. Maybe we can find a price in their race.
Yeah, I mean, this sequence is pretty good. You know, you got some decisions to make whether you want to beat one of the big favorites or not, and it could be a real lucrative day. I think these fields are real competitive. It doesn't look like it's going to chalk out, so I'm just looking forward to it and trying to hit a couple tickets here.
We'll look at the pick five, the 50-cent Philly Big Five. That'll go races 10 through 14. And in those races, we'll have the Grade 3 Turf Monster, 5 furlongs on the turf. We'll have the Grade 2 Gallant Bob, 3-year-old sprinting. We'll have the Cotillion for the 3-year-old fillies, the Grade 1, and the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby for the boys. And we finish it up with the Parx Sprint. So that's the sequence. Remember, before you get involved in your handicapping, head on over to shop.drf.com. Past performances for Saturday at Parx, get you all set up, and we will dive into race number 10. Barry, next week, I'm going to be out at Santa Anita on Saturday the 28th for California Crown Day, which will be a really big day. So next week, you and I will be previewing some massive races at Santa Anita. They've bumped up some of the purses for those big races, and they're trying to make this a really fun, on-track experience too. So I'll be out there doing some hits and some recaps throughout the day for the contest, because there's a big betting contest that a lot of the top gamblers around have already qualified for. So looking ahead to that, that'll be a lot of fun to chat with you about next week.
Yeah, yeah, man. Those days are always good, and this is kind of a new one. So, it's just one of those things that kind of bridges the gap from like Saratoga Del Mar season all the way to Keeneland. So this is like the interim between those two periods, and this day in particular with Penn Derby Day is good, and then now if you're going to add the California Crown, it's just going to be great. There's going to be at least 2 days in September always that are going to be big days, and
right after we had those awesome summers,
right, exactly.
And that's usually when it's supposed to be kind of a down point.
But usually is, but now we can get some momentum.
And that's nice to just be a little smarter about spreading the big days out too. You know, that's what's good. If you want to get an opportunity to get a few more eyeballs on the product, Woodbine has done that too. They bumped some of their days to early in September. We talked about some of their big races a couple of weeks ago. So let's talk Parx. Let's talk about race number 10. This one is the Grade 3 Turf Monster. So some of the horses in here that will be, heavily backed. The 3 Super Quest has done so little wrong in his career. Speed should be close. Really, really honest. The Pennsylvania bred, the 4 Jean Valjean, kind of a little interesting horse who's not really been tested in the 3 starts on the turf either. Algoon will come running. It's a horse who fits at this level with some of these. Senbai is another one. So, I mean, just going through the field, those are probably some of the top contenders. And at least, you have a race where you can go through 3 or 4 top contenders right off the bat. It's a, difficult race, and it's a race that feels evenly matched. And that's usually the case with the turf sprints.
Yeah, always, there's not that many graded turf sprints out there during the year.
No.
This is one of them. So it's going to attract attention. You got this nice field here. It should be a good race. I think there's a lot of speed, though.
Yep.
Like you said, Jean Valjean has a lot of speed. Hasn't been challenged really since he's been on the turf.
Yep.
And that is for me at least a kind of a cause for pause, because
Mhm.
usually when horses like that finally get headed, or get somebody to go heads up with them, like
It's just different. They're not used to it.
right,
You
right.
fold usually. Yeah.
Horse is going to see Super Quest for the first time,
Yep.
and that horse is very, very, very fast.
And been facing like fast against.
Right.
He's been in front of horses like No Balls and other horses who are really fast, proven quality turf sprinters.
Exactly, and I just think this pace is just going to heat up. I mean,
Me
you got
too.
the 2, the 3, the 4,
Yep.
some outside horses. Forced Four Harp has some
Yep.
speed.
Yep.
Um, center mid Maddie is probably going to go. Boats are Rocking probably has to
From
try to go.
outside.
This is a real tough race in that regard. If you're speedy,
I think we're going to the same one.
probably I would say Algoon is probably
Yeah.
Alagon. Sorry,
Yeah.
Algoon. Alagon is the
I want to
first horse
say
that comes
Alagoon
to mind.
too. I always do when you see the two O's right next to each other and you want
Yeah.
to go Algoon, but yeah, Alagon, yeah.
This one should sit the best trip out of anybody, to be honest, because should just slide right in behind this speed and and,
Yep.
and kind of pick a spot.
Yep.
The other horse that kind of caught my eye that I think will surprise here might be the 5 Talented Man. I don't think this one will want to go to the front. And the races that this one's had on the grass were pretty good. And I don't, if they decide, if Hernandez just takes this one back slightly, it's going to make a world of difference. And I think that's what this horse kind of wants to do.
Sit
I
off
think
a
he
little
has
bit.
the speed to do it. Just needs the right trip.
I'll probably use a lot of 6-8. Senbai is another who just could get the trip we're talking about,
I
right? When
want to
it's
like
like,
Senbei, but
yeah,
I think
I'm
the
the
horse is
same
just
with
not the
you.
same.
Yeah, and I'm the same with you. It's like I'm gonna use him because of the trip. I don't like him nearly as much as the 6. Like I wanted to like him more in watching his races back. He was, behind. He backed off about a length after showing speed. He was traveling well. He was up the challenge at the top of the lane. He couldn't get to a horse who kind of won the battle of the speeds and kept going. Maybe he has a little upside because he only has 5 turf races too. So, yeah, I mean, I prefer the 6 most. Probably
I
the
mean,
8.
the
The
thing
other speeds kind of scare me though, like you said. Like the
one
3 is a really nice horse, but I'm a little worried about the trip that
Yeah,
he
you
will
gotta
get down
be.
there.
Right,
It's hard not
exactly.
to.
Um, one thing about Senbei is
Yep.
this horse hasn't won in a while and finally got a win this year. But geez, it was a
It was
long
he was
time
way
between
better
drinks.
earlier on in his career, right? He did the bulk of his winning early on. He won his what was it the first what
First two for or
yeah,
first
and then he won the first 2 and then he won 5 of his first 6. Right? So that's kind of what you were saying is like he's not been as much of a win machine as he was early on when he was really good, kind of beating up on New York breds and he was maybe a little precocious early. Now it's a little different. He's been more of a horse kind of back off the pace on the grass. So he's kind of like a different horse now.
almost, yeah.
And we sort of see this sometimes with horses. And I think a lot of it has to do with turf sprinting is usually a place that you try a few things and you end up there.
Yes. That's
It's like
exactly right.
very few times are you're like, oh, turf sprinting, that's where we're going to go because you want to go a little longer. You try to see if you can run in some of the races that are bigger money, but then sometimes you end up having to come back to what is best for your horse. Where are they the most competitive? Oh, in these turf sprints, that makes the most sense. Maybe that's the case for Senbai here. Any others to mention in this one, Barry?
No, not really. I tried to make a case for Smooth B, but I mean, 0 for
Yeah, me
12,
too.
0 for 12 on 0 for 16. I'm sorry, 0 for 16 on the grass. I just couldn't do it.
It's hard to look. There's really one of those things that's just hard to look past.
Yeah.
Like you can make a case for 6, 7, 8, sometimes even, but once you get into like 16, it's like
Double digits. Yeah,
yeah, it's just really
it's bad
hard.
news.
16 times I'm gonna make an excuse for this horse why they couldn't get one accidental win on the grass, fall into one. Smooth B. Let's move to race number 11. This one is the grade 2 Gallant Bob. Ben Tornado from the inside will take a lot of support. Barry, this is a horse who was in the Saudi Derby, and now that race looks even better when Forever Young won that race, came back and was so good in the Kentucky Derby after the UAE success. And then you've got Bookham Dano, who is a grade 1 winner, 6 for 9, really nice horse. So that was a strong race. Ben Tornado didn't run from February to August, showed up in August at Charlestown and ran really well. He ran a career best effort that day. He lost to a horse named Valentine Candy. Valentine Candy is a good sprinter. It's a solid horse. He's actually entered in a stakes race at Churchill on Saturday too. This week he's like 3-1, one of the top choices in that race. It's like a $300,000 stakes race at Churchill. So that's a fine horse that he lost to off the long layoff. I mean, it makes sense that he's the horse to beat in here, but he does draw the rail, Barry,
awful
right?
draw.
It's not a good draw. Like if he was drawn to the outside, we'd feel really confident that, yeah, he's fine sitting out off the pace. But he could really get in a little bit of trouble here or just have to work harder than he would like early on because you have Bucciarino, who wants to be right there. Sunny Breeze wants to be right there. One Sharp Cookie, very, very fast, always into mischief, also fast. So when there's 3 or 4 other horses that are pretty quick, it won't be easy for Ben Tornado down there.
No, and if you look at his past performances, I mean, he's got 7 of them, and 5 of them he really doesn't break all that well. He gets
Yeah.
bumped around, and for a horse that's always forwardly placed like that, it's strange that he gets into a lot of this bumping around.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And that will
and
really hurt him at the shorter distances like this, right? Like at 6, at 7, and at a mile and a 16th. Like some of his last couple races, you can get away with it a little more when your second and third steps are quick. But in a race like this, where you're going to be facing other rivals that are just a little faster early than some of the ones you've been facing recently, well, then that one step could be a lot more pivotal here if it's a bad step early on.
yeah, absolutely, and there's no shortage of speed here, so
Mm-hmm.
if he stutter steps early,
Yeah.
he's going to be behind it and going to have to do a lot more than probably Irad would want to early just to maintain position.
Yep.
It just puts him in a precarious spot. And there's some horses in here like Sunny Breeze and
Yep.
Buccarino that could is just as quick, I think.
And Bucciarino's in really nice form right now. That was a good win for him here at Parx. He just looking at his speed figures too. Last year, this year, major improvement, and it wasn't one race. All of his races this year, he's just a
Yeah.
better horse. That's what you like to see because sometimes there'll be with one of those races and you wonder, was that speed figure an outlier? Well, no, he was good here at Parx. Then he went over and he tried a little bit tougher at Belmont at Aqueduct. Problem is he hooked an off track that day too. So maybe we didn't get a real good sense of him against the tougher group. He was 25-1. Following that, he faces Bookham Dano, who we were just talking about. So you start talking your way through his form. It's very good. It's very solid.
Yeah, he's definitely solid. I also have the inkling that with Safi having 2 in here, I think One Sharp Cookie is definitely going to force the issue up front.
And I feel
Got
like
to.
the 6 is
That is
taking
the
back,
horse.
is going to take back, right? This
That's
is the
the
one
horse.
with the blinkers on, with Pratt, that could get a really nice trip because he's not winning in a race with Bucciarino when there's not as much pace pressure. But
Correct.
let's say Bucciarino has to deal with Ben Tornado and then maybe a Sunny Breeze and One Sharp Cookie, maybe always into mischief. I think if you're playing the pick 5, this is one of the horses you have to use in here.
Yeah, I like Practically Dark quite a bit. In fact, if I choose to partake in this pick 5, Practically Dark might be my single. I just think this horse is on the verge of something nice, especially when the pace scenario sets up so well. I mean, you look at his buyer figures, and they're not as spectacular as the others in this race, but the potential you can see is there. And then under the right circumstances, which I think this horse is going to run good. The one thing you do have to be careful of is this horse does have a tendency to break slowly.
Yep.
there's a couple of instances where the horse didn't get out of the gate, but it's a little bit more forgiving because there's so much speed in this race.
And then you
And
get some changes too, right? With the
right,
blinkers and with
blinkers on.
Pratt.
I mean, how
You get
can
a
you
really
not?
good
Those are
gate
like
jockey.
the best two changes you could actually get in this situation.
Yep.
So I like practically dark quite a bit in here.
The horse who I'm going to probably throw in also is the 5. Now, I will say I am a little concerned that he might just be better on an off track, because he does have some of his better races on and off track. But his last race, he was off for a while and he made just kind of an aggressive early move. I think they're kind of tipping their hand with blinkers off and Joel jumping aboard. So I feel like
Off the
we're going to
pace.
sit him coming back a little bit more. So if we
Yeah.
are looking for some horses like we're talking about that could maybe be sitting off the pace a little bit, he may be one of them. Second start back. If he can get closer to that 90 buyer speed figure that we've seen and step right up somewhere by close to that, he absolutely fits. And he did that in a 6 furlong stakes race when he was in front of Bucciarino that day, because he got a little bit more of the trip that we're talking about. But my own counter would be, you can look and say maybe it's a off track thing for him. So just make sure you get a little bit of a price, at least the 5, 6 to 1. You don't want to get too short with him, because there are some mixed things that you can kind of hem and haw a little bit about. But yeah, I think we got
Tricky
most
race.
of
It's a tricky
it.
race, man.
It is. Yeah,
It's a really
it is,
tricky race.
because just the draw of the 1, I think, really makes it trickier.
Yep, absolutely.
Because it will force him at least early to try to get position, and that could make everybody just go a little faster than they want.
Yep. That's exactly it. And you get those horses just getting that momentum early, and they're just going to keep running. Hopefully it's enough for practically dark to scoop them up late.
Yep, we like the trip that the 6 practically dark could get, blinkers coming on. Not have to have such a bad start, sit close, but have some nice late punch there too with the turn back in distance, getting a good setup. Let's move to the grade 1s, back-to-back grade 1s. First up, it's the Cotillion, really the big name on the card, Torpedo Anna. She is awesome. She faced the boys last time out in the Travers. She's defeated all of the fillies and the fillies in her division. She's defeated them handily. What scares me about her in this spot, Barry,
You're scared?
Well, here's my only scare. It's not that anybody else is her quality.
Mhm.
It's that she just had to run the fastest race she's ever run by far in a race that was a fight, and it was the farthest race she's ever run, and she's coming back in less than a month. That would be my only concern, is if she's not herself. Not the way the race shapes up, not there's too much speed and she's going to get burned. It's just, if she can't go up, if she does bounce, if this is a spot where she does bounce, are there a couple horses in here that could jump up and be where she would bounce to?
See, I tend to think that if she was going 1 mile and an eighth,
you'd worry more about it.
I'd be worried more about it. Yep, exactly. I think the 1 mile and the 16th is just enough of a breather against this kind of competition that they can't get her. I mean, look, if you look at her past performances,
she's been awesome. Like, it's nothing. There's nothing I have to knock. Her race in the Travers was awesome. She ran her heart out that day. Fierceness was great that day too, and Fierceness was really good in back-to-back races, which he had not done before. So he showed us now, and he stamped himself towards the top. So I have zero knocks on her overall as a horse.
It's
only
really
is just
simple. Look,
it's just, has that taken enough out, or a little bit too much out of her to come back quickly?
I mean, that's definitely a worry. I mean,
that would be it.
Obviously, that there's no absolutes in horse racing, but I think Torpedo Anna is almost it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like I'm tossing her out.
No,
this would be my only like
a little reservation.
Yeah, because if we had another week or two, I get a little bit less of a reservation. I think your point about it being shorter, not having to go 1 mile and 1/8, definitely not having to go like 1 mile and 1/4, is helpful, having the shorter trip. And then, I mean, she's better than this field. Like, she's better than most of these horses. There are a couple nice horses in here. Power Squeeze
Yeah,
is a very nice horse. Very nice horse. I mean,
just not gonna
Tarifa,
get the setup. You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Like,
Tarifa is the one to me that I would is maybe at like a price playable, maybe the 3 or the 8. I could talk myself into. Tarifa was the morning line favorite in the Kentucky Oaks
mm,
and was actually 5-1, and Torpedo Anna was 4-1. I mean, they were really close in price. I think Tarifa was the second choice, ended up being, but was the morning line favorite in a race where there were a bunch of horses that were like 9-2, 7-2, 4-1, all in that range. Maybe just looking at Tarifa individually, we can absolutely eliminate her Kentucky Oaks race.
mm.
Easy to toss for horses when they just don't fire in races like that, especially on a sloppy track. And then she's off for a while, comes back, gets her prep. Was kind of nice that she didn't win, but she was down on the inside and she just had to show speed. And she was just battling throughout. And it just set up really well for the horse Fibber, who was sitting behind him. It was actually a good tightener for her. Like, I think she'll run a big race. I just, Torpedo Anna's so good. She's been so nice. She's been so good. I think it was at least worth mentioning the possibility of the quick turnaround and how she had to just run on a speed figure range
I mean,
more than she'd ever run before. Like, she got pushed harder than we've ever seen her pushed.
yeah, definitely. But if you look at her past performances, top to bottom, all of her races, right? And then you look at her workouts, her past performances at this moment in time might be almost perfect.
Oh yeah,
Because you see, the horse doesn't miss a beat work wise. I mean,
it's
that's
the rhythm,
incredible.
and the
It's incredible,
cycle.
especially
Yeah,
that
you're
last,
right.
that last one in September 14th after the Travers. So that to me says that the horse is still holding her form. And this, they got their hands full in this race. I really don't see anybody beating her. But there is a situation, like I'd say, from 15% and maybe lower,
Yeah, yeah.
where
So
this
okay,
could
so
get the pace could get hot up front, and she could get kind of caught in between, and a horse like Power
working
Squeeze
too
could
hard
win.
to
Right.
good grind it. Okay, so let's play that game then, just for the conversation's sake.
Sure. Yeah.
She gets beat. What's like the headline in DRF the next day, right? Like, how does it happen, or who's the one that does it if
Power
she gets beat?
Squeeze gets up late. That's what I
Right,
would say.
grinds up late. Yeah,
Yep.
how
Power.
I could see that one. I could see one scenario, one out of a couple out of 100. Mystic Lake gets loose. Maybe she takes back a little bit. Torpedo Anna, just sort of, she's now she's so versatile even more. She's such a pro. She's grown up. They probably feel like they could win with her in different ways. We saw her completely miss the break in the CC Oaks a
Mhm.
couple of starts back. Last time she was sitting down on the inside, she shifted out. Maybe she's 2 or 3 lengths behind. Mystic Lake gets loose on the front end. That there would be one. The only other one that I would say was, like, for me, Tarifa bounces back with big win. She was right up in the top tier of 3-year-old fillies earlier in the year when she won her back-to-back graded stakes. But right now, with what they've done for Anna, it's hopefully here and then plenty of time to the Breeders' Cup Distaff. That the plan for them, because I the gambler in me is like, man, in a pick 5 situation, everyone's singling her. If you can somehow beat her, you know, you're really going to get paid, even if it is just the next choice. The horse racing fan in me, the person who's covered racing for a while, I really want her to win because I appreciate when connections run in the big races, take a chance against the boys. With Mystic Dan, he came back and ran in all the big races. Like, I want Kenny McPeak to have as good of a year as possible and to get rewarded for taking as many shots as he did, because you just don't see it as much in horse racing. And I want it to be something that we applaud.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a soft spot for Power Squeeze because that horse started here. Her campaign down here in Florida last year, and was really really good. Last winter, and horses developed, became a Grade 1 winner. Probably the second best filly I would say right now,
She's the most
behind.
proven.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about her from the very beginning, she is better than her speed figures suggest.
Yes.
She's
Absolutely.
always been that way.
Yep.
It's a little bit because of her running style, where she's not a fast early horse. So she's not the type of horse who just stretches off and wins by lengths. It's happened once or twice, but she's more of a just kind of get up, grind up. So then your speed figures aren't overwhelming in those cases when you don't run horses off their feet, because that's just not the type of horse she is. But we've always liked her. We've hit her nice a couple spots. The Gulfstream Park Oaks, I think, was the one in particular.
That was the one, baby,
where we got her good that day. That was a nice one. And she, even in the Alabama, I liked her.
Yes.
I gave her out on a couple spots on Alabama.
I
Day.
sure
I was
did.
surprised that she was 6-1. That was a day that you were really seeing the ball well. We're like all of those races on August the 17th. You had a great opinion. That is the Grade 1 Cotillion Torpedo Anna, the horse to beat. Let's move to the Pennsylvania Derby. Different for completely different from a race, the story of the race, the way you want to talk about this race, because while you have Seize the Gray, who's the Preakness winner, I think we can ask some questions now about how strong that group was at that time. Did he catch some horses who were just coming back quickly, like Dan and Catching Freedom, and then didn't really go on well after that? Did he get sort of the benefit of the trip? He hasn't really come back in his next few races and redeemed that, but he has faced tougher. And after him, it's a lot of horses that aren't as proven. Dragoon Guard is a multiple graded stakes winner, but they've been in the lower derbies, the Indiana Derby and the West Virginia Derby, so he steps up. Unmatched Wisdom, he was a real intriguing horse going into the Travers. We had no idea how good he was, and he just didn't fire. And he's better than that effort in the Travers, but we don't know really how good. He won't be 8-1 if he's
no
5.
Way.
If he's 5-1, I'll be
be
shocked.
Favored.
Me too. I looked a few times when I saw the graphic, because I thought
a double take.
Well, I thought it was 8-5 for a second, right?
Maybe it's a misprint.
I was looking at it a few times and I was like,
maybe it's a misprint.
It might. We were talking, because I talked about this race with David too, and we said as second choice, maybe.
Yeah.
We were saying in the like 7-2-ish range, which to me, he is the most kind of wild cardy upside horse in here. Unmatched Wisdom in just a race that there's nobody that scares you in this race.
No, not at all.
At all. He may have the higher ceiling.
Right. The horses with speed really aren't proven, like you said.
But like the problem with him, like my own knock is, I don't know how good he is. I don't know if he'll sit off really, or how far he will sit off if he has to. Stronghold is nice. He's honest. Even his Derby wasn't bad. He was in the mix,
in the Derby.
And then he just faded late. Like 1.25 miles is too much for him. You could see it right in the running lines. He's there. He's wide, and he just, he has a little bit too much to do in there, going with that wide trip, and he fades. Everything else has been good, but he's not that fast on speed figures for a horse who's probably going to be a shortish price in here.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for him with that post position.
Being wide too.
Yeah,
wide, shortish price.
And he has speed, so how
wants
is
to
be
close.
Unless he clears, which I doubt. He's going to have a tough time from way out there. I hope he gets bet, because I'm totally against him. But I do like a horse quite a bit in here, and it's one of those up and comers. I think this race is the AAA All-Star game.
Yeah,
basically, these horses were just a half a notch below, and they're given this opportunity to step up and earn their way into the Breeders' Cup Classic, basically.
Yep.
And I think Timeout is the horse here.
Yeah.
Should get a great trip. Whether he's good enough, we'll see. Has the pedigree to do it. In good hands with Bill Mott. I mean, everything is setting up for this horse to run a really big race, and there should be enough speed. You got a horse like Protective, who's just really going to get in the way of the speed horses or anybody else.
Seize the Gray's got to go, because
that's when he's running the best. I mean,
they took him back.
Performances.
Exactly. They took him back last time out.
and that was a
His
mistake.
I think he's got his 4 wins. All of them are within 2 lengths of the lead early.
Yes, and that's
And
the trip he needs.
so he'll be aggressive from the inside for sure. That's at least one.
Doc Sullivan has to go.
I think he's going to try to at least hold that position for sure.
Right.
He doesn't want to be too far out of it.
Lonesome Boy, that's
Lonesome
his only
Boy
move.
is stretching
He's too
back out
slow,
from
but
6.5. So I mean, he just was going in a race where they went sub 22 early. He'll be forwardly placed. Protective will kind of be forward. Just Step on it has to go. He's going to set the pace. And then Dragoon Guard. The thing about him that's like, he's obviously nice. He's a neck away from being undefeated. And in his 4 wins, he hasn't even really been tested. Like, he's really opening up. But the race shape isn't all that great for him
no,
here.
not at all.
I mean,
It's
even
it's
just to
gonna be
his
tough.
inside and outside. Just the 2 horses drawn to his inside and outside both have speed.
Yeah, he's gonna have his hands full. That's why I kind of ended up on Timeout. I don't think Timeout's gonna be 10-1. I think that horse is gonna get bet just because the trip and the race shape favors this horse a lot. He's
It just
coming
makes a
into
lot of
this race
sense.
very, very well. You know, the workouts are good and solid, steady, which you'd like to see coming into a race like this where he's expected to run as fast as he's ever run. Um, his race against Unmatched Wisdom, I think he didn't get the best of rides or trips that day, and it looks a little worse than it actually was. And I think the amount of horses in that race also makes it look a little weird. He finished third, but there's only 6 horses in the race, and it doesn't look quite good on paper because he was basically fourth or third the whole way around. So it just looks like
He's
a
not,
little kind of merry-go-round
yeah.
ish. And now that Unmatched Wisdom has some company, I think Timeout can turn the tables on him.
He was a must-use horse for me in pick fours and stuff. Just because there are versions of this race where he gets a great trip and he comes closing, his speed figures all fit. You can look at his races and just, oh, exactly like you pointed out, he's facing some horses that are faster than him early in fields where they haven't been tested early. And if we're projecting that there very likely could be a contested pace here, he's one of those horses that you just want to use, maybe 6-1. If that's fine. If he's that price, you don't want lower, maybe lower than that. But if he gets bet a little bit like that, I think that's fine. He faced older horses last time out. Also, Game Warden is a 4-year-old older horse who's a 4-time winner. So now he gets back in with 3-year-olds. Yeah, he was in the mix for me. I have to use the 8 just because the what if for him. Like I just think of all of these horses, he might have the highest ceiling of all of them. But he might be a horse who was able to get kind of soft trips in his races and those races look a little better on paper. I just think he's better than that Travers for sure, right? I mean, he didn't fire
Absolutely. I mean,
there. Like he didn't fire at all.
he wasn't even into it.
No.
And Irad did the right thing and kind of eased him up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't hold that against him.
No. And because 2 horses in the Travers, I don't know, and maybe it was by design because on paper that race looked like there was a lot of speed. And so Unmatched Wisdom and Seize the Gray both took back. So it didn't work for either of them. I always assume that when you try that and it doesn't work, that the next race, sometimes you even overcompensate.
Right.
To make sure, hey, at the very least, let's get ourselves right back on the lead or close to it. Then you go a little faster even. And if 2 horses have that idea in here, on top of, Lonesome Boy and Just Step on It and Dragoon Guard, who also have that idea, yeah, they may be going pretty quick. I was trying to get to some other horses. Like, I mean, the 11 class-wise fits and the 7 class-wise fits, but the 4 and the 8, to me, they felt like the really only like bettable horses if they're anywhere by their price. The horses that I was kind of gravitating towards as horses to kind of key around in here. So I'm glad you mentioned Timeout because he was definitely in the mix and on the radar for me too.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Those are the only 2 that really caught my eye. Protective is a little interesting depending on the price. I could give that horse a shot, but After that, not really much. I'm not too big of a fan of Seize the Gray.
Me neither. I thought he
Very
kind of,
inconsistent
yeah.
and hard to predict when this horse is going to run good. And he kind of needs to be forwardly placed, and I don't think that's a good place to be in this race.
Let's move to the finale. Race number 14 is the Parx Sprint. This one closes out the pick 5 sequence, and it's a race that has like a spread out morning line, and that just usually tells you that the race is challenging, contentious. You've got horses like Gordian Knot, who's 6-1. Twisted Ride is 5-1. You had Recruiter, who's in that same range. Super Chow 7-2. I think the lukewarm favorite. The 9, My Buddy B, and the 10, 90% Maddie, both 6-1. Top Gunner is 4-1. So they're all in that 7-2 to 6-1 range. Not an easy race here. Go ahead, take the baton to start. Who are some of the horses that were on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, I think this morning line was actually pretty good because
Yeah.
I think these horses are all evenly matched. You're not going to get like an overwhelming favorite. You're not going to have like somebody that is under 2-1. I don't even think you're going to get a 2-1 favorite here, but there's a lot of ways you can go. The 9 horse, My Buddy B, kind of caught my eye, especially off that last race. I don't think this horse really wants the lead. Kind of ended up that way in the race that at Parx the last time, the state rep special. Is that what that is? I don't know. I can't
Yeah,
read.
and he was down on the inside.
He was down on the inside, was forced to
go
go
on with
early.
it, right?
And,
Yeah, you have a
and
good start, and you just have to kind of go.
right. And
Yeah.
the comment in the forum says long duel edged away, and that's a pretty good comment. And I think this time this horse is going to try to come, kind of sit back. There's
Mm-hmm.
enough speed in here to where this horse doesn't have to be on the lead. Super Chow coming off the layoff, if this horse runs here, has a lot of speed, but isn't quite that great off the layoff and tends to lose late. So I don't know about that horse in this spot. I'm real skeptical. Now, the other horse, Top Gunner, looks very, very tough. Should get a nice trip from the outside, kind of stalking that pace. And, seeing everybody inside is probably best in a race like this. So I got to give that one a shot.
He's
I
got some
would
back
think
class. He's proven
I
to.
think that one's going to end up being favored.
Wouldn't shock
Um,
me. Yeah.
but the other horse is Recruiter. And I think this horse kind of has a little affinity for this track, plus the running style that fits. Doesn't need the lead. Should kind of sit behind the in the pocket trip. Basically, is what Rodriguez probably is looking for here. But all these horses, you can see Recruiter. You can see all the bold type in his running lines, and a lot of these horses run against each other, especially lately.
Yeah.
So I would never take a horse at under 3-1 here. So
Yeah.
even if the 11, who I do like,
Gets
goes
bet.
down,
You got to look
maybe
somewhere
he's
else.
9-5, I'd have to look somewhere else.
See, I think the same with Super Chow, who's probably faced some of the better of this group overall.
Sure, yeah.
But
Can't trust him.
He's gotten like 7 furlongs in certain situations, but I don't know if 6 is about his best. Like that's where he's usually at his best. So this is probably a little farther than you want. And you're probably going to get a little shorter price on him. So I agree with you. He wouldn't shock me, but I was looking around for others. The ones that you mentioned, absolutely on my radar. I like the 9 a bit. I had My Buddy B in the second spot, and I like the 3 a little bit, just because I think he exits just some really good races. I can look at that Mulligan race, and I just think he's way better. He may have just bounced off of his monster race 2 back. That might have been kind of an outlier speed figure, right? Because that one was a little faster than he'd been running recently. And so maybe it wasn't 100 that he ran there. Maybe it was more like a 90, which would make a lot more sense and be in his range, but that's fine. He can come back to something more like that. So I think he has one of the higher ceilings. He's proven at Parx. He can sit off a little bit, but he also has speed. So he's shown that he can adapt to different things, which in this race against this field, I think that's that'll be helpful, just having some of that versatility. So, lot of,
9-time winner at Parx too, by the way.
yeah, loves Parx, proven at the Trip, proven at the Tricky in between distances, and he's been competitive with good horses. Just a couple starts back with Nakatomi and Skelly, he's not far behind legitimate graded stakes horses. So, Twisted Ride will be in the mix for me to close this out. Barry, my friend, we don't take a look at Parx all too often, but when we do, it's usually really good races. 90% Maddie is one that she didn't really have any excuse last time. Like, she actually was competitive against some nice horses like Baby Yoda and Mulligan and Post Time. And when she came over to Parx on August 26th, she was facing Pennsylvania breds, getting major class relief. She was a heavy favorite, and she just did not fire at all. It's like one of those head scratchers to where if you knew there was something wrong, or if you knew what happened and you could just eliminate that race, she's probably going to be a lot better price in here just because of it.
Yeah, I mean, she's interesting because of the fact she's getting the class relief, but
Yeah,
I don't think 6 furlongs is quite the best trip for her.
probably a little
But
longer.
she could get it done here under the right kind of circumstances, but I don't
Class
know
wise, yeah,
if that's going to develop or not. I mean, I would keep her in mind as a, like, especially for if she doesn't get bet. I mean,
yeah,
there's she could get overlooked here,
and float up
especially
to
because
10
of
to
that
1
last race
because it's
at
so
Parx.
bad against Pennsylvania breds. Like, oh man, something must have gone wrong. But if you can just eliminate it,
Right. If you take that out, she's a major player here.
yeah, I mean, she's in front of Praetorian Guard, she's in front of Super Chow, and she's in front of Guardian Knot. Or she's in front of, like a lot of her top rivals. She's right behind Guardian Knot in the Gallant Bob last year on a sloppy track. Yeah, price, because
She's
in
one of
race,
those horses that if she slips up, or
yeah,
they let her go off to like 9-10 to 1 and wins, and everybody's like, how did anybody get that horse? And it's like, man, this horse looked logical as hell.
in
And and nobody would have any explanations, like, oh, I just didn't bet her.
so if you're playing the pick fives and you're singling Torpedo Anna, or if this is the race where you're using a few and it doesn't cost you much, $8, $10, $12 sometimes to throw another horse in, throw her in. And then she's more of the what price is she going to be? Because in
Right.
races like this, where you feel like there are 5 or 6 horses that are all going to be pretty close to the same price, there's always 1 or 2 that are forgotten about.
Yeah,
They
always.
have to, it just has to be that way,
Right.
because they all won't be the same. And if for some reason she is 10 or 12 to 1, she might be a nice horse to go throw $20 to win on as a get out horse.
Absolutely.
So that's how you have to, we're gambling, you're handicapping first and then you're gambling after, right? You do your handicapping. And I know some people that are really good gamblers, and I've heard them say things like, I don't even need to handicap the races. I can just kind of look at the board and gamble off of this and that. I don't think that's true, or I don't think that's accurate, because if you don't handicap the races or the games or whatever you're looking at, how do you know with your opinion what the right prices are or aren't, right? The
Right, you
more you're
can't.
looking at, the more you're going to know. But this is one of those races where you look, maybe you initially, like Barry and I were saying, you had another horse on top, but then 90% Maddie is 12 to 1. And you go, you know what? I gotta make an audible just based on value.
It speaks to the ability to adapt on the fly, and if you can do that as a horse player, especially in verticals, you could do all right, because you'll have a good sense. Over time, you kind of learn how to see what the market is and how it shifts, and what people are doing. Understanding that
Yep.
dynamic and applying it can make all the difference sometimes when you're like trying to get out, per se, like you just said. In this last race, you handicapped it cold, but the inefficiencies in the market show themselves, and that's where you exploit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that kind of mentality sometimes when things aren't going as planned.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's the thing that people don't really talk about much, with each
The
other
mental,
as,
no, like the
horse
mental
players.
game. Yeah,
Yes.
the mental aspect of the gambling. We talk more about the mental aspect of the handicapping,
Right.
the race shape, how it's going to shape up. Like, just sometimes with ticket structure, just even simply talking about it, like, hey, you'll mention to someone sometimes, hey, look, we have, or if on your ticket you have like A, B, C, first choice, second choice, third choice. Like, if you're, and sometimes people, you do it and you don't realize you've done it, right? Sometimes it can happen, but you have to let people know ticket structure is very important, right? It's not
Absolutely.
about cashing a winning ticket. It's about, am I going to be putting up a ticket that's $80 and it may only pay $50 back? Like, you don't even, like, when you're betting tickets like that, if you have too many permutations where that's going to happen, don't bet the ticket.
Right, exactly.
Just don't bet it.
That's your intuition telling you that
Yeah.
this is not the spot
If
to take that
if
risk.
you're looking at it and going, I might have to do this or it's not going to pay that much, you have to do one of two things. You have to change the ticket. And in one of the races, you take a stand and you chuck a couple of the shorter prices out and you get a little more creative. Or you just say, nah, I don't need to reach in this sequence. I'll play my opinion in a different way. I'll find a different way in that individual race. Maybe I play a double or a pick threes. Some tracks have cool low takeout doubles now, or pick threes are a little lower, find something, but don't always feel forced, because some of these days of pick four or pick five, if you do just have chalk, 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 A and B in each race, it's just not even worth, like, don't get people. And then people will wonder sometimes why it didn't pay that much. And
Well,
you'll explain to them, like, you didn't have any horses that were higher than 5-1
right,
on your ticket.
right. So you're
It's
not
never
going to
going to
get
pay
paid.
that way,
Exactly. And this is how I always explain it when people ask me, when we get into these kind of discussions. I say it's always the choice between playing chess and playing checkers.
Yep.
You're going to have to play one or the other, but you have to decide and make the right decision of when to do either. And that's when people kind of get frazzled, or they just, they're handicapped and they have the right horses but end up at the window and betting the wrong ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the bridge of the handicapping to the betting.
Barry, my friend, I think we have found a nice spot to put a bow on this one. Reminder to everyone out there, shop.drf.com for all of the help that you need. Don't forget, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, throw a subscribe down there. Helps out quite a bit. I'm doing the Sunday morning shows also for NFL. And we also preview the NFL games earlier in the week. And then we do the Sunday morning show. So we know all the news. We know everything. We go through all the games. And we're going to be giving away $50 free bets
Oh
for the
yeah.
Sunday night games coming up. So, like, if you're someone who likes to watch the football games, you want like a little action on Sunday, come subscribe to my YouTube channel. My co-host Eric, who's on there. So I'm gonna have a tweet that goes out with it where we just let you know. And if you subscribe, and then we'll ask you to like leave us a best bet or ask you to predict the winner for this game, and then we'll always like have during the length of the show, when it's done, then we can pick the winners. And we can give everybody we can give a free bet. We'll give a $50 bet on the game, the total, or the side. So you can have a little action on Sunday night. Barry, though, before we get out of here, I was in Vegas last week, so we didn't end up connecting. But I did want to have our final thoughts be about your good friend Chuck recently, who we had lost just a few weeks back. And I didn't know Chuck the way that you did as a co-host, but if there was anything else you wanted to mention before we finish up here, because I'd love to give a minute of our time for some of the folks out there just to share a little respect, or maybe anything you want to say about him.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the great outpouring of support once he passed. And remembering Chuck, I've been putting stuff up on social media just to kind of put it out there, because a lot of people really they knew Chuck, but they didn't really know him. And I got to know him quite a bit over the last 7 or 8 years. And we became really, really, really good friends. We used to talk every day. We used to talk everything. Um, but it was good to see the people give him his flowers, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
It was very good to see, because he deserved it. He worked hard his whole life. He loved the game more than anybody could ever know. And he's finally laid to rest and at peace. So I think he's looking over us and hopefully get us into the winner's circle this weekend.
Barry, my friend, thank you so much. Chuck, we'll miss you. Chuck, I appreciate how good you were to my buddy Barry. So that was I appreciate that. I didn't get to know Chuck all that much. We had some interactions here and there, but just as you pointed out, hearing the stories everybody was sharing, you always can tell by how everybody reacts when you lose someone, and everyone was just it was sad, but everyone was kind of, like you said, celebrating and sharing their funny stories or pictures or the stuff that Chuck taught him, or mentioning how he would send him a text or call him and, give him some advice. So really,
my nickname for him was always horse racing's reluctant hero.
Well, Chuck, rest in peace. Barry, my friend, we will talk again next week. We'll be previewing Santa Anita. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with us here. And we hope you all have a great weekend. We will finish up this one with the soothing sounds of Joey Cleveland. Take it away, my friend.